Welcome back, my friends, to my channel and another creative video. I am jumping back into everything that I've got going on over here after a busy holiday season, and I wanted to kick things off in January by sharing with you something that I tend to do the first couple weeks of a new year or the first couple weeks after the holiday season, and that is put all of the recycled gift wrap to use in my art journal as backgrounds and as a way to thicken up a lot of my surfaces for art journaling throughout the year. Now, as I've shared on my channel, I am that person in the room who collects any kind of interesting, colorful, unique gift wrap that I can then save and repurpose in my artwork. Anything from using it on a canvas surface to my art journal to over the top of watercolor paper. That wrapping paper is wonderful for collage ephemera. It's a wonderful way to thicken up a surface. I often work in art journals with thin, cheaper paper, and I love thickening them up with any kind of collage paper. I really love being mindful, especially when I'm working in my journal. I love being mindful about how much money I spend on supplies or ways that I can get creative with upcycling and recycling things that might otherwise get thrown in the trash or the recycling bin. And the holiday season is the perfect time for me to build up my stash of wrapping paper, colorful papers that I can utilize. A lot of this stuff would otherwise get thrown away or recycled, and so I tend to gather it up after gifts have been unwrapped, and then I will spend a good couple days with a few different sessions just taking time to start adding all of this paper to art journal pages. I tend to work really intuitively. At this stage, I'm not super concerned about the colors that I'm working with. I don't tend to like to use Christmas wrap or holiday wrap on every single page because it's a lot of the same colors. But as I'm going to show you in this video, as you watch me work through this process, I love pulling in acrylic paint and kind of changing up the color theme. What I'm often looking to do when I'm using upcycled gift wrap is actually create a lot of colorful moments, whether it's pattern or little rips and pieces of little things from the wrapping paper. If it's the pattern or if I flip it over and use the other side, I'm simply using this to create the beginning or the background that I can then work over the top of. I love ripping things because I love all those edges showing through, and I love just working from my gut, just kind of ripping and gluing as I go. I will often sit at my desk and work through multiple spreads and pages, just trying to work through my stash of papers and put them to use in my art journal so that later on down the road, I have all of these spreads filled with these really colorful backgrounds. This is something I've shared in numerous videos throughout the years here on my channel, as well as in my classes. But since it is kind of a tradition for me over here in January to prepare a lot of art journals in this way, I thought this was a perfect moment to share a little bit of the process with you. Now, I often use gel medium, Mod Podge, or regular craft glue, and I will simply just glue, dry those pages with my heat tool, and then jump back in and work on another spread. I always joke that I'm an impatient artist. I don't like waiting for things to dry, so I always have a heat tool next to me so I can quickly dry things, flip the page, and move on to the next. A good couple sessions of maybe an hour, hour and a half here and there gives me a lot of different spreads and pages in my art journal. So now I've got pages filled with these colorful moments and surfaces and backgrounds that I can then eventually work over the top of. And while a lot of the colors and the pattern are going to look pretty similar in these pages, I know that I can go back in with colorful acrylic paint and really tone down the Christmas feel. Anything from using colors that feel less like the holiday season. I will usually add lots of pastels, pinks and purples, and I will hang on to some of my favorite parts of that wrap. Maybe it is a fun bright color, maybe it's a floral element or a little peek of the texture or pattern on that wrapping paper. Sometimes I will paint over the entire surface and just hang on to that paper as texture in the background or as a way to thicken up those cheaper surfaces. But I really love going back in and painting over some of the areas. I love these fields of color on all of my art journal pages. It's one of my favorite ways place to work, especially when I'm working this large on a surface. I have these little areas that I can maybe journal inside of with words, draw, paint, giving myself lots of opportunities with different color choices as well as some of those colorful scraps of wrapping paper are one of my favorite ways to create really messy, colorful, expressive backgrounds that once again, once it dries, I've got waiting for me in my art journal for future projects. I always say that my art journal is a place where I'm preparing for the future. While I make art for a living, and this is what I do all the time, I don't necessarily have unlimited time to work in my journal. And so I love having these small bursts of creativity where one day might be collage for 20 to 30 minutes. The next day might be adding paint for an hour. Then maybe another day I'll have time to actually paint or work over the top and continue to add layers. I'm always preparing things so I have these future moments where I have a burst of creativity in that journal and I can get creative with the time that I have in my schedule. And taking time to paint over that wrapping paper is one of my favorite ways to continue to add layers. So again, once it's dry, I know that I can choose from all these wonderful, colorful backgrounds to figure out what I am feeling inspired to do, what I can work through. Sometimes it's more collage, sometimes it's my photography, other times it's painting, journaling, or playing around with even more layers. And the spread I picked has a lot of color in the background. You can still see that wrapping paper, but I've got a lot of purples, some blues, some really light teals in there, and I'm going to work over the top, let y'all watch me kind of play over the top of these backgrounds that started with all that recycled gift wrap. My hope in letting you watch me work through my process is this brings you a little bit of inspiration when it comes to maybe using everyday things that might get overlooked or thrown away. You might not collect or grab all the wrapping paper in the room when gifts have been unwrapped, but I am pretty sure you probably have something in your recycling bin or around the house that might be headed for the trash that you could put to use in your art journal in a really creative way. And I'm hoping that my process shows you that you can really play around with that process, how you layer, how you add things, and then how you continue to work over the top. So I'm going to let y'all watch me completely alter this page with some floral painting. And again, hoping this brings you a little bit of inspiration for your art journaling or any of your creative process.